I'm going to be showing you how to draft this beautiful twisted underbust top, and also how to draft the skirt to attach it to make it a gown. By the way, I'm Natty Gizmo. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and if you are liking what you're seeing, please subscribe. Thank you. So first thing first, we are going to draft out the front basic bodice, and the first thing you're going to do is to fold your drafting paper into two. Like, your drafting paper should be on fold. So what you're seeing me doing here, I'm tracing out the lines, tracing out my chest line, bust line, tracing out my darts, tracing out all the necessities. So I'm tracing out the necessities for my front basic bodies. That's the chest line, the bust, the darts, and everywhere. So I'm tracing from the shoulder to the waistline. So I omitted the hip line. That's from any measurement from the waist down. I omitted it just from the shoulder to the waistline. So let's start from the side, from the waist at the side front. I'll come up by 2 inches. These 2 inches, I'm trying to locate my underbust, and I'll also measure on the folded line too, so that I can have a straight line. So I'm going to draw a straight line, and then I'll mark it as my underbust. And from the neck, that from this neck middle, I'll come down by 3 inches. 3 inches. And then when I'm done, I'm going to trace everything here that you're seeing. I'm going to trace every line so that it can show on the other side of the paper. So as you can see me, I'm tracing out every line that you're seeing here so that it can show on the other side of the paper. I'm just trying to make sure that my waistline is prominent. And I'm going to trace it again. So I'm done tracing it. And then I'll open this up. Then what I will do, I will trace the line. I will trace all the lines on the other side. That's what I'm going to do, tracing all the lines, all the connecting lines. That's what I'm going to do. And this is it. So first thing first, like I said, we'll come down from the center by 3 inches. We'll come down by 3 inches. Yeah, I was deciding whether I should go 3 or 4. But I finally decided on 4 inches. It depends on how deep you want your neckline to be. So I chose 4, and from there I'm going to draw my symmetrical line. And then starting from the neck point at the shoulder point at the neck, I'll connect the line from the shoulder to where I marked my 4 inches. And from that 4 inches, and I will go down to the underbust line that's at the side front. Just watch me. And then I connected the lines. So like I said, from the neck, that's the shoulder point at the neck region, neck base, connected to the 4 inches. From that 4 inches at the center neck base, then connect it to the underbust. And then next thing is to cut through. So let me recap what I did earlier. So at the shoulder point, I connected the line to the 4 inches I came down at the center neckline. And then from that 4 inches, I connected it to the underbust line that's at the side front. And as simple as that. Then what I'm doing here now, I'm cutting through. So I'm going to cut this all through. I'm cutting the armhole. Go to the shoulder point. And then I cut on the asymmetrical line. Please, if you have any question up to this point, please make sure you leave your questions at the comment section and I'll be grateful to answer you. So this is it. This is what we have for the front basic bodice. So this is what we have. So I'm going to cut out the excess. I'm trying to cut out the excess underneath the waistline. Cutting it through. As you can see, I didn't touch the darts. I left the darts opened. So voila, we have our front basic bodice. So we're going to go over to cut out our fabric. So I folded my fabric into two. That's right side facing each other. So at the shoulder, at the symmetrical line, and the waistline, I left 1/2 inch across, except my sides, because my material is stretchy, so there was no seam allowance left. So every other place, that's the shoulder, the symmetrical line, and at the waistline, 1/2 inch for seam allowance, except the sides, because my material is stretchy. So if your material isn't stretchy, please leave 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now we're going to go over and do the back. So this is my back basic body pattern. I've cut out from the shoulder to the waist. So what I usually do is that in my basic pattern, when I'm drafting it out, I usually go up by 1 inch, but I will not going to do that for this project. I'm going to leave it opened, except from that 0.5 inch that I came in. But the video on how I draft it will be out very soon. So I told you earlier, I'm going to leave everything opened, but I'm going to cut through the 0.5 I came in. That's from the center back. So this is what we have. I folded my fabric into two. That's right side facing each other. I left 1/2 inch. That's at the shoulder, armhole, and at the waist. And I left 2 inches at the zip. At the zip area, that's at the center back. I left 2 inches to serve as my zip allowance. So what I'm going to do here, I'm trying to mark a line so I can notch it. That's for my waist and also for my neckline. So to serve to tell me that, oh, this is now my zip allowance here. That's what I'm trying to do here. So like I told you earlier, because of my material is really stretchy, I won't be leaving any seam allowance by the side. So although I will leave the seam allowance, that's at the armhole, the shoulder points, and then the waist at the waist points, and then my zip allowance, that was 2 inches. So that's what I'm actually doing here. So like I told you earlier, the back is very simple. Nothing too technical about it. So voila, so that's what we have here, and we are done for the front parts for the top. So now we're going to go over to draft our skirt. So this is our skirt pattern. What I just did, I folded my drafting pattern, my drafting paper into two. That is on fold, and then I just traced it out just to give it a shorter length of skirt. So I'll just open this, make it flat. That's what I'm going to do. So from one side of my hip line, I'll come down from my hip line, I'll come down by 2.5 inches. come down by 2.5 inches, and then the other side I'll come down by 7.5 inches. That is what I'm doing here. I'll come down by 7.5 inches, and I will try to connect the 7.5 inches to the 2.5 inches that I did the other side. So as you're seeing me, that is what I'm trying to do, trying to connect both lines together. I'm trying to make it asymmetrical. You can actually use your hand, any one that's suitable for you, as long as it gives you what you want. So you can use free hand, you can use ruler, or you can use your hand. Anyone that's suitable for you, but I prefer this and I just like this, so I'm using this so that I can have a very nice and clean line. So I'm done. I'm still trying to clean this to make it really visible so that you can see what I'm actually doing. So because my material is stretchy, and this is a very long measurements, I have to fix in my 1/2 inch, that's my seam allowance, because the material is really stretchy. So what I'm going to do next is that I'm going to add my 1/2 inch across because of how stretchy the material is, so I don't have to start doing that on the fabric. So I'm just going to add my 1/2 inch seam allowance across this my measurements. Just fold it down so that cutting through will be easy for me. So I'm just going to align the 1/2 inch that I did. Just watch what I do and take your time and look at what I'm doing. And then I'm going to cut this through. I'm going to cut this through. So I'm done for the front. That's for the front skirt pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and do the back. So this is our back. So what I'm doing here, I'm just trying to trace out the lines for the back onto the other paper, tracing out everything, tracing out the hip line and the and don't forget my zip allowance measurement is already on my drafting paper. If you've not watched the video for the skirts, the video the video for my skirt pattern is out, so you can, after this, you can go watch it to know how I draft my skirt pattern. So this is it. So what you see me here, I'm trying to trace and connect all the lines. I'm connecting all the lines. That's the zip allowance and the hip. Please don't forget that this paper is on fold, because anything if you are drafting any asymmetrical design, anything you're drafting has to be on fold. So don't forget, like I said earlier, this paper is on fold. So I'm tracing out, that's my hip and my zip. I'm actually doing my zip so that I'm tracing this so that it can actually appear on the other side, so that I can trace it well. Please, if you are confused on how I drafted my skirt pattern, please go watch it. The video is out on my YouTube channel to understand better. So this is it. So what I'll do next is to trace and connect all the lines on the other side of the drafting paper. This is what I'm going to do. I'm tracing out everything that was on the other side. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, tracing out the zip allowance. I'm tracing out the hip line. I'm trying to connect the line. And then we are done. We are done tracing out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the front. As you can see, this is the front stiff, and I'm going to turn this on the other side. So the right side facing each other and the back side facing me. That's the wrong side facing me. And I'll try and place the hip line exactly where they are. I'll make sure that the front and the back hip line are facing each other and on the same side. Look at what I'm doing. I'm placing both hip, making sure that the hip line are on the same points, facing each other. And then I will just mark where that inches stop. And I will try and trace, connect it. This is what I'm doing. I'm trying to connect it. Mind you, the reason why the back is longer than the front is because of the zip allowance that I added on my drafting paper. So don't be confused. It's because of the 2-inch zip allowance that I left on the drafting paper. That is why the back pattern is wider than the front. So I'm just doing this so that I can have a very good line. So I'll go on the other side, make sure the other side of the hip, then the both lines, that's the front and the back, are facing each other and at the exact points. And then I will mark where the inches stopped, the length stop at that other side. I'm just trying to connect the line. So at least, okay, I have an asymmetrical line here. So what I'm trying to do here is to have a very clean asymmetrical line connected, and I'm going to, draw and redraw the lines to have a very good asymmetrical line at the back. This is what I'm doing here. So as you can see, like I told you earlier, it's a very simple thing. You don't need to. So what I'm doing, I'm trying to remeasure and make sure that what I have at the front is same thing for the back. I came down there by 2.5 inches. So I'm trying to make sure that is exact inch measurements. And I came down here by 7.5. And I'm trying to make sure that is at the exact place. So what I'll do here, I'll try and cut this through. I'll cut this through because it's on 2 pieces. I'll cut this through. I'm cutting out the zip allowance. Cutting out the zip allowance. Start dividing it too. And then what I'm going to do next, I'm going to join the hip point together using a paper tape. just to make sure that, you know, they are equal. I'm going to use a paper tape to join or to place both at the hip line. So I'm going to connect both the front and back skirt pattern together at the hip line, and I'm going to reconnect the lines together, so to have a very clean asymmetrical line at the back of my basic bodice. So this is what I'm actually doing. And then when I'm done doing this, I'm going to cut through the asymmetrical line. This is what I'm doing. So I am done cutting this. So what I'm going to do, as you can see, is a clean cut. So I'm going to place my front the front bodice to make sure that the lengths at both sides they are equal, placing the hip just to the measurement, and the same thing for the other side, making sure that they are both equal. You know, that's the front and the back at you know, the hip sides, they are equal. So I'll go ahead by cutting out my fabric. So this is the front. Like I told you earlier, I by the sides, no seam allowance, but the waist and then across this asymmetrical line, that's ½ inch. I already have my ½ inch that's along the asymmetrical line, so there's no need to add any more again. The only place I added ½ inch was my waist region. I added ½ inch for my seam allowance. My ½ inch was already on my pattern for the asymmetrical line. So this is the front, like I told you, it was on fold, and this is the back. The back is was 2-piece, so I've gone ahead to do the back. Like I told you earlier, the only seam allowance that for the back was for the asymmetrical line and the waist region, but my side region, by the sides, I didn't leave because my material is stretchy. Please, if your material is not stretchy, make sure you leave seam allowance at the sides. But my material is really stretchy, so there was no seam allowance that I left at the side. So this is my front. I've cut out the fabric for my front. My front was on fold. Then the back was 2-piece. Please don't forget, for my back pattern, the zip allowance was already on the drafting pattern. Okay, thank you for watching, and I'm going to join this.